you. Now from Harry to Tom. That is interesting. So ladies and gentlemen, Tom, our Toastmaster of the meeting. Now, I have decided that I shall provide you some tips, tools, and techniques to make this role pop, and indirectly your meeting pop, in a very interesting question format. You'll find that actually quite intriguing and possibly even easy to retain. Now, what do I mean by question format? I shall present it to you in the 5W1H question. Now, many of you may be familiar with the 5W1H, I'm sure. So I shall be asking you where, who, why, when, how, what, Tom. See if you can just follow that and pay attention to some of the visuals I've used. We'll discuss that briefly after I have addressed you, right? So sure, the first slide. Yeah. Therefore, we start with where, Tom. That means where would you expect to require a Toastmaster of the meeting? Ta-da! You'll find that you will need a Tom at Tom, which means T, town hall meetings, O, open house meetings, and M, your milestone meetings. Very briefly, a town hall meeting is where you would conduct a Toastmaster demo meeting at an organization and expect questions from the floor on the benefits of Toastmaster. The open house meetings would be within your clubs, but you invite other clubs and non-Toastmasters to expect questions from the floor on the benefits of Toastmaster. And milestone meetings, of course, are meetings where you celebrate your 100th, you meet 250th or 500, and special occasion meetings within your club. For all these, you will require a TOM, Tom, or a Toastmaster of the meeting. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the key word here would be professionalism. Please make a note of that. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, at a very minimum, make sure that you are on time. And when I say on time, I would recommend you arrive before time and be very familiar with the agenda of the meeting. Note it down if you wish, and make sure that you have the latest updated agenda before you start so that nothing goes wrong during your presentation, right? And number two, make sure you are presentable. By that, I mean, I'm not suggesting a three-piece Giorgio Armani suit, but I do expect you to not look scruffy, which means at a very minimum, have a nice clean top or a round neck t-shirt or shirt with a light jacket if the climate in your country does not permit something heavy. And one more thing, if you're going to present full length from head to toe for some reason, either virtual or live, make sure you're not wearing flip-flops or open-toed footwear and sandals or beachwear. At a minimum, you must have polished shoes on. This goes without saying, right? Okay. Why? Because very simply, when everybody notices that you care for yourself, they also believe you respect your audience. Very good. So that was all about where, Tom. Now we go to who, Tom. Now we look at, all right, you understood that. So who is a Toastmaster of the meeting? Ladies and gentlemen, the who, Tom, is somebody who is, number one, tactful. T, right? So he knows what to say. Number two, somebody's outgoing, who loves social settings. And number three, somebody who is masterful, he knows how to manage people. I'll briefly comment on this. Tactful is somebody who knows what to say, meaning you will not discuss or talk about or touch upon sexist comments, or of course, religion, or as we all know this, politics, or anything at all that may be a sensitive topic. Having said that, please ensure that as a Tom, you are creative, you are lighthearted, you are humorous, but you keep it all in good spirit and of course in good taste. That's why tactful. The key word here, ladies and gentlemen, is dynamism. Why dynamism? You need to be dynamic because somebody else in that meeting may be taking more time than you expected. You have to therefore cut down on your time to be able to quickly change to keep everything within control. You have to not just go with the flow, you also need to control the flow. That is dynamic, ladies and gentlemen. This is true even for entry-level Toastmasters of the meeting and for professional master of ceremonies who wish to actually elevate that position. Make sure everything goes according to the timing that you are given. Be dynamic. Which now brings us to, all right, we are now understood where, we have understood who, but why? Why do we need Toastmasters of the meeting in any meeting at all? Well, firstly, T, to tie the whole meeting together. If you don't do that, everything goes all over the place. There is no cohesiveness in the meeting, which means the dots don't connect, not just for you, but even for your audience. There needs to be a flow which is very, very logical from start to finish. You, the Tom, are the master in control. Ladies and gentlemen, remember in the opening, I said, watch those visuals. I'm not commenting too much on the visuals, but you noticed a symphony conductor. He conducts the orchestra. The orchestras are the performers. They will be your speakers. All right. Similarly, you will find that there is somebody who is actually in this visual you see here.
No, this is why tie the meeting together. Open and close the meeting with a bang.
Right. Open and close the meeting with a bang.
Okay, sorry, my mistake. You're saying doing who, Tom, is it? Tactful, outgoing, masterful, you finished. Now it's why, Tom, tie the whole meeting together.
Right.
Open and close.
Open and closes the meeting with a bang and make sure the audience is having fun. That is why you need it. So I'll repeat that one more time, ladies and gentlemen. Ties the meeting together, opens and closes with a bang. Make sure everybody's having fun. I know the visual here is fireworks. It's like that. You need to be the person who needs to open and close. The keyword here is energy. So ladies and gentlemen, as I'm demonstrating right now in real time, you have to be energetic, even if you don't feel so during that time. You'll have to somehow create that, pump yourself up, have some water before you begin, if that helps you. All right, because your energy will be infectious. Your enthusiasm is infectious and your excitement. All right, so keep that in mind. Which now brings me to how can you do all that, which means what is required of you, right? Right. The three things that are required of you is, again, interestingly, TOM. You tailgate, you orchestrate, and you motivate. Now, let me talk about that briefly. Many of you who drive would know that tailgating is when somebody is moving forward, you're very close to the person behind, which means you follow that person all the turns that they take, right? Similarly, the Tom or Toastmaster of the meeting has to follow the speakers. He has to follow the individual performance. When I say that, be alert. All right. If I'm not mistaken, the keyword here is alertness, right? And therefore, you got to make sure that things are going according to your preparation. If not, you got to make sure you quickly understand where something changed. And that can only happen if you tailgate the speakers, right? You orchestrate. That means you manage the agenda. You control the agenda. Right? You are the master and control there. And finally, you motivate, which means you keep the participants, which means the audiences, energized. That is the keyword here, which alertness. You got to be alert. All right. Don't lose focus of what's happening. Right? Good.
Next one is how, Tom.
Now, how do you do all this? This is one of my favorite slides, ladies and gentlemen. You do this by, again, TOM, which is talking less and transitioning more. You do this by owning the stage less and offering it to others more. And of course, you do this by mirroring less and by mediating more. The keyword here is the baton exchange, which is transition. That's why you have the visual. Now, I'm going to talk about this briefly to all of you. First one is talk less and transition more. Ladies and gentlemen, I have noticed in my own experience observing Toms in many meetings that sometimes the Tom believes he or she is the most important person in a meeting and has to be in the spotlight or in the limelight on stage. That is wrong. The Tom is somebody who actually is behind the scene. I mean, not literally, but on the side, and lets everyone else perform and shine. The Tom has to only ensure everybody else is shining. In that process, the Tom is shining, believe me. Okay, so he's the transition. He's not the talker, right? Similarly, the Tom is somebody who understands that he does not own the stage. He offers the stage. As for example, next we have this speaker coming up to talk about the stage is all yours. That is what a Tom does. Not, I am now on stage. I got to do all the talking right now. No, that is not correct. You are not the speaker. You are only the mediator here, right? And number three, you don't mirror what the speaker has done. Let me briefly spend a minute on this, ladies and gentlemen, because I've seen this mistake being made, especially for entry-level masters of ceremony or Toms. They believe that in between two speakers, they must comment on everything that the previous speaker has said. No, not true. You don't have to step in after a speaker and say, well, that speaker talked about how he or she was mentored by his father while growing up. Oh, that was great lessons you learned from his mother, blah, blah, blah. Not required. You will just note down what was the highlight of what that speaker said, which means you don't mirror the speaker. You don't repeat everything the speaker says, but you very cleverly mediate, which means you step in between two speakers, right? And you would say, wow, I loved what I heard about how your father was your first mentor. Wow, that must have been a great experience, all right? Something like that is what a Tom does. It comes from experience, but bear that in mind, which now brings me to when you are the Toastmaster of the meeting, what do? Again, ta-da, T-O-M. You thread through the meeting. You offer insightful comments and you manage time very well. Ladies and gentlemen, the last part, please make a note, is very, very important. You've got to be very efficient at time management, which is why I'm going to go back to previous comment. If you find that other people are taking away too much time, which was not scheduled, and that you still be able to be dynamic enough to cut down what you need to say cleverly and adapt to that, you do not continue following your script because you prepared it and everything goes haywire. The meeting goes 15 minutes or 20 minutes over time. That is not done. Numbers, and most importantly, when you thread to a theme, have a theme of the meeting. The Toastmaster of the meeting then comes up to the stage, talks briefly about the theme, and very nicely threads to that. That means the entire meeting, if you remember the previous slide, is tied together on that theme. You will comment upon it in the way you engage with your audience, right? If the theme was, for example, in a recent meeting that I attended, the theme was solar eclipse, right? So I created a session where every speaker was a star. And I kept telling, I don't want to eclipse the next speaker. So let me invite on stage our next stellar performer. These were things I did, which throughout the session was tied to the theme of solar eclipse, right? And on planets, right? Similarly, you can come up something creative like that. Yeah. So have a theme. So that's very important. And the keyword here, therefore, is control, especially time management and time control, which brings me now to a recap of the 6 keywords that we have used. At a very minimum, ladies and gentlemen, for this role as a Tom, if you can keep the keywords in your heart and the back of your mind, you will probably rock. Okay, it may take a little bit of experience, but you will rock. And what are these keywords? First of all, professionalism. And you remember all that I said about that, right? Especially being on time and making sure you're presentable and not scruffy, all right? At a minimum, wear a jacket is what I recommend, right? Number 2, dynamism, which means make sure you're able to quickly adapt to what changes are happening in real time. You are dynamic like flowing water. Number 3, energy. High level at all times, so the audience also is energetic, like the fireworks, all right? After that, alertness. Make sure you're alert to make sure everything is going as per your plan, or you're alert to what is not, right? And then, of course, transition, like the baton exchange that you saw in the picture. You hand the baton to the next person and then take it back, hand to the next person. And that is transition, and finally control. These are the 6 keywords, ladies and gentlemen. Follow this, and I bet you will make your meetings pop in this role. You will elevate it to the next position. I'm going to leave you all and conclude here with one comment, all right, which is all of this comes with experience, which means experience counts. However, that count begins when you do something for the first time. So even when you step up as a newbie, as somebody who's taking on this role of Tom for the first time, your count starts. Do it to the 2nd, 3rd, 25th, 50th, 100th time. Of course, you're up there because experience counts. All right. On that note, I will now open the floor for questions. And I'll be happy and delighted to offer you, I'll clear any doubts you may have on being a rock star Tom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster Jai. Don't you think he looks a little bit like an Indian Elvis Presley? I swear, you really do look like an Elvis Presley. Let's go down to the audience and allow the audience to ask a few questions. We will have a Q&A at the end of each presenter. So if you want to ask a question, unmute yourself, introduce, say your name, your club, and then go ahead and ask the question. I'm sure Jai is quite ready to answer as many.
Just don't step on the blue suede shoes though.
Come on.
Hi, you're muted, is it?
No.
Blue
it's fine.
switch?
Yeah.
Nope, you're good. We can hear you.
Okay.
Let's see. Do we have a question?
Yeah, so Krishna.
Yes, I have someone here. Go ahead,
Krishna,
Kevin.
hi. Yeah, I just want
Hi,
to
Krishna.
commend Jai for being able to speak without being able to see.
That's
So
true.
so good job on that. My question is, how do you politely get a speaker to stop speaking? Do you have any tips?
Yeah,
without
I
hurting
do.
people's feelings?
Great question, Krishna, and thank you for asking me that question. The first thing you must let people know, at least jokingly or indirectly, is DTM does not mean don't time me. So everybody will be timed, right? Okay, so Krishna, I'm assuming, of course, that you're asking this in the context of a Toastmaster meeting, which means you have a timekeeper, which also means you have the green, yellow, red card. So I would advise the speaker to pay attention, advise the speaker to pay attention to the time card and let the timer know that the red card must be flashed a couple of times or the light flashed. If beyond that, the speaker continues to speak, Krishna, have something that works for you in your meeting, like a ding, 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 ding bell. So I would suggest you go for a bell, okay, which is after the red card, the speaker still going blah, 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 go ding, 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 ding. And then as a Toastmaster of the meeting, you would wait for the first opportune point where the speaker is between two sentences and say, thank you so much. We would love to hear more from you. We will have to continue with the next speaker. Thank you. You'll have to say that, Krishna.
Would love to hear more from you another time. Thank you. Yeah,
Yes.
that's great. Thank you, Jai.
Yeah, good.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Let's take another question from the audience. Simply unmute yourself. Miranda's raising her hands. Go ahead, Miranda.
Miranda puts me in the hot seat. All right.
Yes. What if the Tom is the one who talks on and on about himself? I've seen that.
Well,
Okay.
Audience.
that's again a great question, Miranda, and that also does happen quite often, does it not? I would go back to the comment I made about the timer. I would suggest you have another audible alert besides the cards you guys use. So maybe clapping or maybe the ding, 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 as I suggested, would help if the Tom keeps going. Or possibly the timer takes on the ownership of that and tells audibly to the Tom, you will have to move on, sir, or Mr. Toastmaster or Madam Toastmaster. The timer says
strategy.
That's exactly what I said. You will have to, if the lady is the Tom, they'll say, you'll have to move on, Madam Toastmaster, because we have an agenda.
We have time for one more question. Dentia, are you asking a question? You seem to be raising your hand. No?
One more question, yep.
One more question. We do have time for one more question.
Yeah, I got a question. My name is Juan. I'm from Cochin Toastmaster Club.
Hi.
And thank you for the Toms for the speech, for wonderful sharing. And I have one question for you is that, like, since I've been TMB before, like, because I'm still very newbie, and how you going to create a very high energetic atmosphere like that? Because like whenever I started to become a TME, right?
Yeah,
I will feel nervous and I don't feel the enthusiasm. So I actually, it's somehow like created the entire environment to become very tense like that.
Right. Okay, I'll give a quick answer. You see this in my hand? This is a stainless steel flask of water. So firstly, I'll advise you to be a little hydrated. All right, little, not overdo it. Otherwise, you may have to rush. Right, but a little hydrated. Secondly, do you love music, concerts, etc.? I forgot. It's Juan, is it, who's asked me the question?
Yes.
Right.
Juan.
Yeah. Have you?
Yes.
You got to spell it to me, Sean.
Yeah.
Do you go to music concerts ever? Have you seen a live concert?
Yeah. Yes.
Whatever it could be in your local Bahasa, language, or maybe rock music, any other language. Those musicians, you think that behind stage, before they start, they're all going, I have to go for after another 5 minutes. Is it? Let me nap. No, you know what they're doing? They're walking up and down behind. They're going, yeah, I can't wait to get on stage. Yeah, right. Let me go. So fun. You have to pump yourself up, and pumping up is very simple. You got to find yourself a private place where you just jump up and down for a few times until you can feel warm in your body and you feel the blood circulating head to toe. I know, don't do it in public, obviously, that'll look a little silly. do it where you are not noticed. Even a restroom might help. Be careful that, or if you're with a colleague, the best technique I as a trainer and a coach use is high-five each other. Just tell your colleague, all right, it's time for me to go. Let's go rock it.